Nah, 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 nah. Perfect. Hello. In this video, I want to show you a few things regarding retopology in Blender. Um, I've been doing recently a few things, a few retopology works in Blender, and I found that it's very interesting. I want to expand a bit more my tools box. I want to be able to use more tools for to give more options, to have more options whenever I have to do a new task. And yeah, Blender is super cool. I think it's very nice to learn a new software. So a few of the things that I'm going to comment in this video, you can find similar tutorials here in my channel. I have this one that is called ZBrush to Substance, and then I have this one that is called XREF for Retopo. It's basically how to set up in ZBrush and the models, the subtools, the names of the subtools, and how to export this to do the retopology, and also how to be efficient working with high density meshes in 3D Studio Max using XREFs, instead of importing the high poly mesh into Max, use it in an XREF. So this is the first thing I wanted to do here in Blender, to how to organize the scene. Okay, so one of the most important things to have a good retopology experience, especially when you have a complex character, is to organize well. Okay, organize very well your scene, organize your names, have a super clean setup. Okay, so let me show you first. I'm going to open directly this one. This is the model. I'm going to do the retopo. Okay, um, it's basically the decimated model. So this is not the high poly. Okay, you can see the wireframe is not okay. I'm still a bit uh, learning Blender and shortcuts and navigation, so I'm still a bit slow. Okay, so well, you see this is not the high mesh, but it's the decimated mesh, and basically this file is around 200 megabytes, something like this. So yeah, if you check the video that I was commenting, the XREF for Retopo, you will see that if I start working, you will see in that video, if I start working on the retopology on top of this model, on this scene with all these meshes here, every time I save that file is going to be super heavy. I'm going to use 200 megabytes more. 200 megabytes more. And one of the things I like, or I think is a good practice, is to keep an historic of your files. You save in increments. Okay, you don't save all the time in the same file. You keep saving, adding numbers. Okay, in the name of the file. So what I do is the xrefs. Okay, so let me show you how to do this. Let's open a new file. So to do the xrefs, you don't have here the name xref, you have the name link. Okay, so link, you go to the file where you have the file. In my case, I have the shortcut here. So this is the file. You see, this is 245 megabytes, and this is the files I've been working on, saving in increments. And as you can see, these files are just 2 megabytes. They will be increasing the more I add geometry, of course. But if this thing was all the time 250 megabytes adding to this, it will be already very heavy folder. Okay, so let me link this thing. So when you link a file, it will not automatically open the file inside your Blender file. It's like it's going to enter inside that file. It's very similar to a zip file, something like this. You enter in that file. When you click on a zip file, you see the interiors, right, of that file. So this is the same. This is what is composed in that Blender scene. Materials, the collection, images, whatever. Okay, textures, whatever is inside. So we have three options. I'm going to go through all of them. So the first option will be using the collections. Okay, as you saw in the file, I have collections organized here. I did that manually. Let me open again so you see exactly. So it's this one. So you see I have here collections, okay? This is the names I use in ZBrush. I exported the OBJs. I imported all of them. By the way, I used a script import batch. Yeah, it's this one. Yes. So you import multiple OBJ files at the same time. By default, Blender you don't have it. So there is this option. You import it and as a batch file. Okay. So you select all of them and they will import multiple OBJs. When you import all the files, of course you don't have the collection. So what I did is just organize them. Okay. I keep them in the same collection based on the name. Okay. That's pretty much it. So let me do a new file. Let's do the link again. Now I'm going to go again. Oops. Go to my Blender. Not this one. This one. And then I link the file. Okay. So now let's go to collection and let's select all the collections. Okay. So when you link this way, you see all the collections will remain. The problem is that I don't see the contents of each collection. You remember in every collection I had inside a few meshes, okay? Not only one mesh. So in this case, for example, if I select this one, isolate this. So this one, I should be able to select this is an independent mesh and this is another mesh, okay? So I should be able to select these things, but in this case, I cannot. Everything is like merged into one single collection. So this is not very optimal. There is a way with shrink wrap. Let me quickly, I'm not going to go very much in detail on this, but I just want to show you. So if I do a shrink wrap modifier, if I want to select the high poly mesh, I try to use this thing, it will not work. Okay, it will not detect the mesh. The only way is to click here and then find the mesh by its name. That's not really very optimal, but that's a solution. Okay, you can do that. Okay, so let me do a new file and let's go through the other way of doing this. So in this case it was collections. Now let's try mesh. Okay, if you do it with mesh, let's select all of the models. Okay, let's link it, and what it will do, you see all the meshes are correct. You can see the names, separated names of all the meshes, but the problem is that the model will be rotated. I don't know if it messes with the scale of the model. This is not good. I don't know why it's rotated. I guess it's because it's not bringing the transformation, something like this. I guess you could just rotate this thing in X 90 degrees and then, I think that should be good. But yeah, I don't know. Let's explore the third method that is the good one. Okay. So let's do a new thing and let's link. So this was mesh and this one is the object. Okay. So the object, as you can see now, let's link everything. Okay. This will work right away. Okay. It will link everything right away. The only problem is that we don't have the collections. So if you want collections, you cannot use this. If you want the actual objects, then you cannot have the collections. You cannot have everything. But of course, what you can do is redo the collections. Basically, what I do is just select the ones with the same name. I click M, then new collection, and then you just put the name. Okay. Click enter twice, and that's it. And these are B. Okay, B, M, new collection, B, enter, and so on. You do this with all of them, and in the end, you will end up with. Let me open the last one I'm working on. You will end up with this. So what I do is with the UI, when I have so many elements like this, what I do is I have this here, and I'm going to put here the outliner. the collections here on the left. So basically I will select here the outliner, I will put it in this side, and here I will have the properties. Okay, so when you have a lot of objects, I think is very optimal. Let's do 1 second, hide this thing one level, view, hide one level. Okay, so as you can see, I have here now the collections, what I was showing you before. This is what I created, and I usually what I do is I have one collection that is whip, is the one where I put everything I'm working on now, and then I have another one that is done, where I put everything that I finish. Okay, when I finish retopologizing something, I move it to done. When I'm working on something, I put it in whip. So basically now these ones that I'm working on should be on whip. When you look at the XREF now here, when you select the high poly model, you see you cannot really modify this thing. You cannot edit it. In fact, if I try to enter in this, what is going to tell me is, okay, do you want to open the original XREF file? Do you want to open that other Blender file? If I do this, it's going to open another instance of Blender, and it's going to open the high poly model. So it's great in case you want, for example, to do a change in the material. So you want to do a change on the materials of this, maybe it's too dark, you do the change of the material, save the file, and then when you come back to the original, it will auto load those changes. So if you do changes in the original high poly Blender file, whatever changes you do here, when you open back this file, these changes will be here reflected, because it's an instance. What is doing is just mirroring that information. So yeah, this is great. You have access to your high poly models. You cannot move them, you can do anything with them. That is great. You don't want to do anything with them. You just want to retopo with them. You just want to use them as a high poly model under the low poly model. If you need to do any changes, you go to the original file. Different ways of visualizing the mesh. Okay, so we have here the let's use this thing as an example, this, because I think it's going to be very simple. So in Blender, there is this thing that is called the in front mode. Okay, so in front mode is basically a mesh. You make it, as you can see here, you have the low poly mesh, that is the white one, and then the high poly mesh, that is the dark gray one. Basically, when you do the retopo, you are creating the low poly on top of the high poly, okay? And the visualization is going to be similar to this. You are going to have two meshes overlapping, okay? But in Blender, you have this very cool thing that is called, in viewport display here under the object properties, you have the thing that is called in front, okay? In front, basically, is going to paint that geometry on top of the other, no matter what, okay? No matter where you are looking at it. Now, this is a cool thing and also a bit difficult thing, because as you can see, sometimes it's going to be difficult to work, especially in complex models, because as you can see, I don't see the high poly anymore. I mean, it's here. If I go close to the border, maybe you see this dark border is part of the high poly. So you see, it's like the high poly is getting completely occluded by the low poly. And this is a good and a bad thing. Depending on what you are doing, in some situations it can be good, in some situations it can be bad. This is something that you should be activating or deactivating depending on the situation. You don't want all the time this on, because sometimes you are going to interpret the mesh in a way that is probably not realistic, okay? You don't see the relationship between the low poly and the high poly. You don't see where this vertex is in the surface if you have in front activated, okay? You don't know if this is good or not. This is a very simple example of a geometry, but in a very complex geometry, you need to see the relationship between the low poly and the high poly. So I recommend you to keep this thing in a shortcut so you can deactivate it or activate it whenever you need it. Anyway, to me, the best way is using an add-on that is called Draw X-Ray. This is something you can get it for free on Gumroad. If you search in Google Draw X-Ray Blender, you will find it. Yeah, and you have to enter in edit mode to see. Basically, this is going to make it look very similar to Maya, where you see like the geometry that you are working on is on top of everything, and you can control the opacity. For example, here you can say the phase of opacity, you see, on top. So you have you can see your low poly mesh, and also you can see the high poly mesh, and they don't really fight each other. You are not occluding one like the in front does, and you have always visibility on your low poly mesh, like you see here. You can always see your low poly mesh. So to me, this is the best way to do, like you see here now, because I see the relationship of everything. For example, if I want these borders, okay, if I want to make sure that this vertex is exactly on that border, I just move it, you see, and I can find super easily that corner, just by looking at the white, how the surfaces around react. You can, if you want something more clean, I can understand sometimes I even want to do this differently. If you want something more clean, you just activate hidden wire and it will look much cleaner, everything. Draw X-ray is, I think, is very cool. This plugin is super nice. You can also change the offset, is the distance where this thing is painted on top. 0.5 is good for me, the opacity something 0.6. You can also change the edge opacity, but yeah, this one I always keep it at 1 at maximum. And yeah, that's basically it for the visibility, for the visualization. If you want to switch to the in front mode, now with Draw X-ray it doesn't work. Okay, you have to exit this. You cannot do this while you edit. You have to untick Draw X-ray and untick hidden wire, and now you can work with in front mode activated. But again, to me, in front mode is I will use it just in very specific situations. I will prefer always to use Draw X-ray like this, and if I want something more clean, I will activate hidden wire, but most of the times I will be working like this. Okay, so this is for the visualization of things. Now, the tools, okay? So I'm not using any. I'm aware there is scripts, there is add-ons for retopologizing. I didn't want to start with a lot of add-ons learning Blender. I wanted to start with the basics. And yeah, retopologizing what we have in Blender by default is not bad. I mean, it's, of course, in other softwares is more advanced because they have more years on their back doing this. One of the things I love about Blender retopologizing is that you don't have to define a high poly model. Okay, you only need to activate here the snap. Okay, the moment you activate the snap to face, you have to activate to face and make sure that you have also align rotation to target and project individual elements. Now, whenever for example, if I want to start doing a retopo here, I will just click, shift right click. I will create, put the 3D cursor there. I will click shift A to add objects, and then I will say plane, and the plane will automatically be here. And then I will grab G, and then the plane will be here. And then I will start retopologizing this. In Maya or in Max, I will have to define this object as the live object or the object where I want to retopologize. Here in Blender, not. Here in Blender, you just simply have whatever is behind that thing, under that thing is going to be the high poly model. So this thing, I can move it wherever I want in the scene, and it's going to snap to that. That is great. That is great. In Maya, I was constantly switching, or in Max, I was constantly switching high polys, especially when you have a low poly mesh that contains several high poly models, you have to switch between those high poly models all the time. In this case, not. There is no need to do that. So Super simple. The way you retopo in Blender is very simple. You just, with my add-on, draw X-ray, just select the component with G, you move the thing, okay, it's grab. You could use, of course, your, the gizmos, whatever, of course. But of course, it's way easier, if you use G to grab the thing, it's super fast to do this. Then if you select an edge, you click E, you do like an extrusion, okay, super easy. You have this very nice tool here I'm going to talk about now, that is the poly build. Basically, poly build is you don't need to extract. It's going to, when the moment you hover some component, an edge or a vertex, it will select it. So if I want to extract, I will simply extract like this. If I want to create here a triangle with control, you go here to wherever you want and you will see a preview. So you do it in a corner, you will be able to create a quad. So I will do this and then I will create a quad. Let's see if I do, for example, here, you see it's not a snap to the surface. The problem is this is happening because I'm still holding control key. The moment I release control key but not the click of the mouse, then everything snaps again. Okay, so when you use this tool, click, move, but release control. If you don't release control, then it will not snap. Now I release control, but if I do this with control pressed, it's like doing it in screen space or something like this. So yeah, always remember to release control and everything will be fine. Okay, so very handy tool to do this. With shift, you just click on something and it will delete it. It has a very hard time identifying what is back face and what not. So, unfortunately, this tool, when you have a complex model, is very difficult to use because, for example, here I'm pressing shift and I'm just moving, and it's, for some reason, this face, is like, okay, I have the mouse here. If I click here, I will be deleting something that is on the back. I'm hovering here and I see vertex that are from the back face. So you have a complex model. It's much better, to stick to the normal tools, to extract, select polygons, whatever, faces, whatever, delete, extrude or whatever, but use the normal tools, the extract, build. Another thing, I like to use an add-on that comes with Blender. It's called F2. I don't think this comes activated by default, but you can activate it. Just search for F2, and this is just doing one thing. When you select a vertex, click F, you will automatically generate a polygon. Okay, if you use this in combination with this button here, that is the auto merge vertex, you also have this thing here, options. Yes, here you have auto merge here. Is also here, and if you're using mesh machine tools, you have it here, auto merge. This is very handy. So basically, if I click F and I move this thing and I move that vertex near the other vertex, it will automatically weld it. If I do this thing, I move this vertex near the others, it will auto snap them and it will weld them. There is a super cool extrude thing here. You have this one that is called extrude to cursor. So if you go here to edges, for example, here, and then you select extrude to cursor, basically whenever you click, that edge is going to extrude. And this is very helpful because you see it's going to try to create the curve of what you are doing. I found this super helpful, when doing borders. If I will have to do this armor, what I will do is first define this border, okay, and then I will work on the insides. This tool works perfect for this, like, let me quickly do this. So I will do this plane, and then I will grab this, and then it's in poly build. Let's move this thing here. So I will put one, something like this. Okay, so you do this and then you move, and it's super nice because it keeps the same length of the edge and it's trying to follow the curvature depending on where you are clicking. So very, very handy to do this, you know, to border this thing. You can select the faces or whatever, and then you have here this smooth here. So you click on the smooth and then you will have this thing, you move it, you know, and yeah, I mean, it's smoothing, but it's losing the contact with the surface. It's not, doesn't keep everything snap to the surface. So yeah, you can do smooth with this and then, you know, grab this again. So just click G and it will automatically snap to the surface. The other option is using the smooth brush. So what I do is I just, with the mesh machine, you go here to this button here that is set the object basically to sculpt mode without going here, you know, to go to this sculpting tab that will change your perspective or whatever. Just keep it here, you know, in modeling or in layout, wherever you are, and just go to sculpt mode. Automatically, without any other thing, you will be in sculpt mode. Here it works in front. Here you should be also activating wireframe, because if not, you are not seeing anything. Okay, here you have a smooth, and what is important in this tool is that you configure this thing so it stays on the surface. Okay, I think by default this Laplacian or this name, I don't know. This is the smooth, it will destroy your surface. Keep it surface, and then the smooth, it will try to keep the volume, you know, it will try to keep the surface as you have it. So yeah, much better to use this smooth. This is again not perfect. It's also going to affect to a certain degree the snap of the geometry. So for that, you have a final thing, final option, that is going to be the shrink wrap modifier. Okay, the shrink wrap modifier is basically a modifier that will make the low poly stay connected to the high poly all the time. Okay, it's going to evaluate during all the time this relationship. So just add to the low poly this thing, and then let's say let me deactivate in front so I can see the high poly. And then I say, okay, which one is the target? Which one is the high poly? This one, okay? And then it will automatically do this. If I want to see the changes that it's doing in the mesh, just do this. And again, this is not going to be perfect, okay? You can keep working on a geometry with this. For example, you can select now, I have the modifier, and now if I use this brush, it will stick to the surface. Again, it's not perfect, but it's going to work. I can go into sculpt mode. I can activate here in front, and I can do the smooth with the other type of smooth, because now the modifier is taking care of the snap. You know, I'm destroying the mesh, but as you can see, everything tries to be snapped. So yeah, again, it's not perfect, but that's what we have. Okay, so personally I think it's better to use the surface without shrink wrap. But what I like to do is when I finish an object, when I finish the retopo of something, I like to do a final pass on it. So I will do this. I mean, a final pass. I will add a shrink wrap. I will check the high poly, and then I will see, I will evaluate if everything looks good. You know, if there is anything that sticks too much, or I can, you know, something that really, you know, I see that could be improved. if I don't see major differences, I will just keep it like this. Or if I see differences, of course, I will just go to that vertex. So for example, here looks like, this one looks like this vertex. Well, I can move it a bit and that's it, This one, okay, I can move it and that's it. Now it doesn't move that much. So I just move it a bit. So I will do that if there is anything big. But, I prefer to, especially for these maybe borders or interior areas where you did this very custom, very manual, shrink wrap, sometimes it will break things and maybe you don't notice. So yeah, do it carefully. I don't recommend you to have shrink wrap all the time while you do the retopology. I think it's something, at least for me, that helps me to evaluate at the very end, if there is any problem. I've been using G key, okay, for doing this, moving, whatever, but you also have this thing here inside that is called the tweak. Tweak mode is super handy, it's very, very helpful. It's just basically, I like it a lot because it's like in Max, you don't need to select something and then move it. You just click and drag and everything moves. And it's great, it can work on edges and faces and all the components. It's great. I mean, it works super well. Doesn't mess with back facing. So yeah, I recommend you to use it. I have it here on my quick shortcuts. Sometimes the thumb of the wheel is like super heavy. Okay, this is too close, this is too far. In the middle, of course, you can use control to zoom better, but I don't know, I like to use the wheel of the mouse. So what I do is go here to this menu. I don't know in English, in an English keyboard, where is that key? Is the one, for me, is the one to the right of the L. Is the ñ in Spanish. I don't know in English which one is that, but you have the view menu here by default. Okay, so you do view selected, and then it will do this zoom, and now the wheel is like a frame selected in Max. Now the wheel will be more soft, there is not that, it's not that crazy. So yeah, I like to use the wheel a lot, so this is probably the best way. If you do this with just one single component, with one vertex, yeah, it will zoom infinite, so it's not very ideal. So you just select a bunch of them and then, zoom in, and now the wheel will work. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. Let me know in the comments how you do, because probably how you do this retopology, I'm very new to Blender. I'm sure there is ways of doing this, will add more to this conversation. I will be very, very happy to hear how you do this retopology, if there is anything that I'm missing, if there is anything that I did wrong, maybe. Okay, so you can let me know in the comments. And yeah, make sure that you check the other two videos I was commenting, the XRefs and the preparing the ZBrush file for exporting to Substance Painter, because I think those videos will complement this one very well. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching. Hope you learned something. Bye bye.